It is finished. As I meditated upon these words, the first thing that God showed me was that His work on earth was done. That everything that He did when He said those words, it was completed. That it was finished. The words "it was finished" that Jesus said was not a cry of defeat, that it is over, that it is done, but it was a shout of victory, saying that He completed His work. It is finished. When Jesus said it is finished, we were no longer under law, but we were under grace. If you turn to me in the Bible to Romans 6:14, it says that for sin shall no longer be your master, because you are not under the law, but under grace. So no longer are we living under the law and under the works, but we are living in a period of grace in the freedom that God has given us. When Jesus said, it is finished. So let us live a life that is in the freedom of Christ and not under condemnation and under the works of our own hands, but by the finished works of God. Personally, in my own life, I know that I've always had to remind myself that to live in the freedom of God, in the freedom of Jesus, what He did on the cross. Because sometimes, being a bit of a perfectionist in my life, I know that whenever I used to fall and fall again, I used to feel that I was not worthy, that I was not good enough, that maybe if I earn grace, because I'm not good enough, I'll try to earn God's grace. But what I realized in my walk with God, that it was a lie of the enemy, and that it was his attack on me to just live under the condemnation which was of the law, but was not under grace. And it also says in Romans 5:20 and 21 that where sin abounded, grace abounded all the more. And so God's grace has made the full provision for the sin that we have committed, and all the more. So it is greater than the sin we've committed. So let us not live under condemnation, and let us not feel that whenever we sin that, oh God, feel condemned. But let us walk in God's finished works. In Proverbs 24:16 it says, For when the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again. But the wicked stumble when calamity strikes. So let us constantly in our walks with God remind ourselves of the freedom that we have in His grace and in His finished works. 1 Peter 5:8 says that to be alert and of sober mind. For the enemy prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. So it is very important for us, because the enemy knows our weaknesses, that we need to keep reminding ourselves of the finished works that Jesus did on the cross and live in His grace each day. When Jesus said it is finished, the veil that was that separated man from God because of sin and under the law was torn in two from top to bottom, so that we were no longer separated from God, but we could have a personal relationship with Him and be justified by His grace before God. So let us not take what Jesus did on the cross for granted. Let us, even though we were not worthy, He died for us. Even though, everyone fell short of the glory of God, He came and He died for us, and He gave us grace so that we could come before God and have a personal relationship with Him. In Titus 2, chapter 2, verse 11 and 12, it says that grace is not the freedom to sin, but it is the power to live a holy life. So let us stop misusing grace to live the life we used to live. Let us stop misusing grace to, the sins we used to commit. Let us stop misusing grace to keep committing those sins. Let us use the grace, which is the power to live a holy life, to overcome sin. Let us use grace to overcome sin. Let us use grace to overcome the weaknesses in our lives, the things that no one knows about that only we struggle with. Let us use the grace of God to overcome that. Let us use grace to overcome in our sufferings, in our weaknesses, because the grace is the power to live a holy life. And it is through this grace, which is the power in us to live a holy life, that we can have a personal relationship with Jesus and walk in righteousness. So, in finishing thoughts, I would like to say that when Jesus said it is finished, let us believe it, let us trust God, that He will give us the grace to do what we need to do in our daily lives.